What's up, everybody? My name is Jason, and welcome to Small Biz. In today's video, we're going to talk about a train wreck known as Mullen that just announced a very shocking 1-for-25 reverse split that brought the stock down by as much as 30% at today's lows, and is the Federal Reserve, under the leadership of Jerome Powell, about to get out of the way, and we're looking at easy money for many, many years to come. All that and more coming right up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the market is closed. Last trade 066. Most of our stocks are up 3 or 4 or 5% after hours after an atrocious day that saw the Dow and the S&P close 275 off on the Dow. The S&P was off 0.7%, along with the QQQs, or the NASDAQ 100s. The IWM, which I own a huge chunk of in terms of my long-term investment, was actually up on the day 0.4%. But the stocks we own, whether it's Mullen, XCLA, MMAT, MCOM, by the way, do we owe an apology? Do we owe Sal an apology now that we've lost almost 90% of our money? Somebody tell us in the comments. But across the board, Trika, 19 and small change after hours. Jason, are we fucked on Mullen, and may we as well throw in the towel on the rest of the stocks like some of you unfortunately have done on Twitter today? Let's get this straight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not here to make excuses. Never have been. We have been absolutely shellacked in the last 2 months. The stocks that I just rattled off, what I currently have half my money in terms of trading, hot money, so to speak, is down 35, 40, or even more percent in the last 2 months. There is no excuse. But, and I hate to remind everybody of this, if you've been following me since last March, you're still up, to be exact, 389%. Now, the Debbie Downers, and there's a ton of them out there, would say, yeah, but we were up 1,600%. Yeah, if you're just joining us, welcome. Your $1,000 investment, if you went in and out of over 100 winning trades with me in the last 15 months, at one point last summer, was worth 16 grand. But through a combination of realized losses, BBIG, Comms, GMBL, and paper losses like we currently have right now, I've given back 2/3 of it in the last 2.5 months. But if I'd have said to you last year, when we closed out December 31 with 6x plus 600 in the midst of an S&P that's only up 7.5% in the last 2 years, if I'd have said to you, there's a very strong possibility, and I did, that we're going to give 1/3 of this back, maybe more. But you'll still be up 350 to 400%. Would you have taken that? You damn right you would have. Well, that's where we are today. But as you may have seen earlier, and this actually bothered me, we had someone go off the rails, and he wasn't the only one. I had more on YouTube and even some phone calls of people that are either panicked, throwing in the towel, or blaming me for their losses in penny stocks over the last 2 months. I am one of the only ones. In fact, if someone's got another, I'd like to know who it is, that shares all of my trades, whether it's my investment advice, and I've said repeatedly, 80% of your money or thereabouts should be married to the stock market. S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, and the Russell 2000. I own QQQ, SPY, and IWM. That's 2,600 stocks in 3 ETFs. That's half my money. In most cases for you, it should be 80%. So that 80% or thereabouts is up about 10 or 11% this year. The 20, 30, or even 50% of my money is down 35 to 40% from where we were a few months ago. But if you add it all up, I'm only down 16.8%. Now, I'm trailing the market, but we absolutely blasted the market last year, top 0.5% worldwide. But I have a warning in case you haven't heard me a time or two. If you're going to disrespect my name, if you're going to throw me under the bus and claim that I'm either incompetent, don't know what I'm doing, or, God forbid, ripping people off, you're out. I've been fired 200 times. I'm going to be fired another 100 times when you see the next video that entails a price hike and 18 things or 18 reasons why a few hundred people at least are going to want to get and keep a premium membership. But not everybody's tough. So you know what? I sat here cooling off a bit in the last 2 hours and I said, this is a major blessing in disguise. We've all been taught a lesson that with big gains come the potential for huge drawdowns. There's always a reversion to the mean. And when times get tough and the bullets are flying, you want to know who's in the foxhole, don't you? Whether it's your friends or your family, if you're going through a divorce, cancer, or you've been shellacked in the stock market, or God forbid, all the above, don't you want to know who your real friends are? Don't you want to know who's got your back? Don't you want to know that there's people in the world that will suck it up? They may not like it. They may be frustrated. They may be annoyed to some degree that they went too heavy in some risky investments, but they're going to stand the test of time. So this is, in my opinion, the more I think about it and have a chance to swallow it, it's a blessing. We're going to find out who's in and out. We are going to find out in this shit or get off the pot moment who's going to give the same guy who racked up 100 winners a chance to dig us out over the next several months. I am not thinking we're going to make money in those 4 or 5 names. I'm thinking from the standpoint, I gave the government half my liquidity last year. I was depressed for 2 or 3 weeks as a result of it because the capital gains were so huge. And even though I am looking at major drawdowns in half of my trading account or my portfolio overall, I know I'm not writing the government a check this year. So if I can get half of the losses back, let's say by the end of the third quarter, and get us in place for your typical seasonal third year of a presidential cycle, up big time Q4, we may finish the year out, break even, close to it, down a little, up a little. And some of us that are local to Atlanta, where I live, will be able to have a drink and say, you remember when Mullen did a fucking 1 for 25 reverse and we didn't know if we were going to be doomed or actually get our ass out of trouble? Well, if you made it this far and half of you didn't, here's my opinion on Mullen. They had until September to get the stock over $1. They had another, 4 or 5 months, because they just got an extension a month and a half, 2 months ago. But for some reason, after they just put out a $63 million deal with Marion Auto Group, and there's rumors of a $10 billion Saudi deal, whether it's true, half true, a tenth true, who knows? The stock was cranking. I counted 800 million shares that traded at 8 cents or higher in the last week and a half. And if you were watching this morning when it was up near 9, when the market was actually choking before the Fed came out with an announcement, which again, they're out of the way for the next several years. You're going to see the 10-year come down to 2.5% or thereabouts. You're going to see trillions in liquidity that is going to help bring us up out of the ditch. But in terms of Mullen, it was on fire. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's down a penny and a half in about 5 minutes. And then it continued to fade. It bottomed out around 6 cents, which is an all-time low. Right now, it's trading at 0.669 after hours. I expect it to open tomorrow after the 1 for 25 reverse, somewhere around $1.50. If I had to say worst case, given your typical reverse drawdown, $1.25. But I have to believe, and this is just my opinion, and I realize that most reverse splits, especially this year, have been awful. MCOM is down 90%. It's an absolute train wreck. And don't we owe him an apology? Don't we owe that stupid ass motherfucker who's lied through his teeth repeatedly? Didn't he say at $5, and I'm talking about MCOM, that we owe him an apology? That was followed up around $3.50 that he's going to be the last one to laugh or smile. Well, last trade at 0.89. I don't think any of us are going to owe you an apology or a fucking laugh anytime soon, Sal. But if you're here for Mullen, I have to believe they've got something up their sleeve. You are going to see a much smaller float tomorrow. So 3.5-4 billion is going to be reduced down to a couple hundred million or less. And unless they turn on the spigot, and they may, we could be looking at a second, a third, a fourth news announcement in the next 30 days. Because as I pointed out on Twitter, they did the same thing in 2017, a 1-for-10 reverse split. 6 weeks later, it went up 400%. Look it up. 2017, I believe it was October. I shared it on Twitter. Follow me at Try Small Biz. It went from $3.75, call it 4, to north of $15 after the 1-for-10 reverse split. So am I saying that this thing is going to go up 3 or 4-fold? No. But am I saying that it's possible because they hit us out of nowhere after all this good news, after all the institutions, including us, were buying millions of shares at 7, 8, and close to 9 this morning? I have to believe, David, are you listening, that you've got something up your sleeve? Because if they don't, then yeah, shout out to the Debbie Downers. They brought out Mr. Mullins before he ended up in the hospital and then took a 2-week vacation to gin it up over a dime, finish the $1.5 billion share dilution, call it 5, which they were maxed out at, bring it back down, tease you with some good news. Who knows when the Marion order is going to happen, only to reverse the stock and add another 2 billion shares. Is that possible? Yes, it is. And welcome to the world of small cap, aka pennies. You can make an absolute bloody fortune, and we may, if this squeezes like it did in 2017, or you can get bent over the desk if you're new, welcome, without any lube whatsoever, and it's in and all the way up. But in closing, I want to remind everybody, I have been in this situation before. Yes, I went bankrupt once or twice, the biggest one, 2008. I was actually right. I had hundreds of thousands of put contracts on the NASDAQ 100 because I lived in South Florida. I saw strippers getting 3 or 4 houses with no documentation. The problem I had is I was early. I was loading up in 06, early 07. So about 6 months, and I'm going to tell this story in detail, about 6 months before shit hit the fan, aka the movie The Big Short, I had a run on the bank. I had to sell my house, my cars, my boat, run from Florida to Georgia. If I'd have just had futures or bought those options 6 months later than I did, $4.1 million in my pocket on one take, and I had about 25 accredited investors, so I would have been able to roll around about $50 million for the next 40 years. But if I'd have done that, I wouldn't be here today. So I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, if you can take a fucking punch, if you understand that with good times come the bad, if you understand the principle of a reversion to the mean, or last but not least, the law of scarcity, I'm going all in, and you're going to see it on my next video when I give you 18 reasons to get a premium membership. And I'm probably going to reduce the amount of families that I fight for. Something tells me around 300, 350 max. And you're going to get everything you could ever imagine. Access to me by phone and or email, Zoom calls, Skype calls, Facebook groups, Discords, stock texting, videos to promote your business at 60 seconds a clip. And I could keep going, but I'm going to take a break from right there and say, you know what? Thanks for hanging with me. And don't you ever give up. Always remember that I love you, and thanks for watching.